to explain a little bit of the background, Madam Deputy Speaker, about the legal advice that we commissioned around the Civil Contingencies Act. The reason the Right Honourable Member for Doncaster Central and I commissioned this legal advice is because of the national dimension of the services run from the airport. The National Air Police Service, Search and Rescue, Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, Airport Fire Service, oil spill disbursement work and military activity. Now, these are national activities, Madam Deputy Speaker. That's why we think the Civil Contingencies Act is engaged. And it's because of the short notice given to these services, told to cease operations, I believe, by November the 18th, that it gives them very little time to prepare and find alternatives. Now, I want to read to the House briefly the legal advice from Lord Faulkner of Thoroton, who was one of the co-sponsors of the 2004 Civil Contingencies Act. This is not, a lawyer that we found sort of on the street. This is someone who was the Lord Chancellor, who was responsible for co-piloting this legislation through the House. And he says this, and we have made the legal advice available, but we can obviously make it available to members here if they haven't seen it. He says this: "It's my opinion that under the Civil Contingencies Act 2004, the Transport Secretary has clear legal authority to intervene," by the way, this is or any government minister, "to prevent the closure of Doncaster Airport due to the disruption of essential services run from the airport." And this is the key point. The shortness of the period before closure means for many, if not all of these services, an interruption of their life-saving services, and for some of them, potentially, a permanent reduction in quality. No doubt some of them will find alternative bases. How good they are and when remains to be seen. In this truncated timetable, in breach of the lease, there is the potential for disruption to these life-saving services. So Lord Faulkner, for those who are familiar with the Act, is applying the test in Clause 1 of the Act. And the test in Clause 1 of the Act defines an emergency as an event or situation which involves, causes or may cause loss of human life, human illness or injury, damage to property, disruption of facilities for transport, or disruption of services relating to health. And he says there is no doubt that the disruption or interruption of the services described above constitute an event or situation which, and he quotes, causes or may cause any one of the circumstances described above. Yeah.
Fletcher.
I want this to work. I want the Civil Contingencies Act to work. But I've spoken length with the people that are offering these services, and they've said there'll be no disruption to their services. Now, I actually asked with them. Now, it's not something I wanted to show on the floor of the House because we're showing us cards to peel again. The Honourable Member keeps on, the Right Honourable Member keeps on pressing this point. I've been through this. I've wrote to the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State's written to me back, and they said that they can't use it. Now, it's a Labour peer that's passing advice to a Labour Member of Parliament. Now, but I still backed it. I still went to the Secretary of State. I've tried this. I think we're taking away the argument that the reason why that we're here is that a £20 million loan never appeared, and that is why we're losing our airport. Now, we've got this consortia around the table. We've got Peel around the table. What we need to be doing now is pressing as much as we can for that to make a decision, for them to make a right decision. Going on about a Civil Contingencies Act, which we've gone through many times, it's not helping.
Honourable gentleman, because he keeps sort of wanting to play the blame game. There'll be time, if we don't succeed, there'll be time for him to do all the finger pointing. There'll be time for him to put it on his election leaflet and to try and blame the Labour Party. But don't do that now. Don't do that now while we're trying to save the airport. If he wants to do that, let him do that. But don't do that now. Let's work together to try and save the airport. Now, would it require boldness and commitment to use the Civil Contingencies Act? Yes, it would. But, and I have to say, he says that he's got clear advice from government. The Secretary of State won't even meet me. Madam Deputy Speaker, I've been in this House 17 years. I've never had the experience of a Secretary of State refusing even to meet me, or indeed other members of Parliament, or indeed the South Yorkshire Mayor over issues as important as this. So look, what I say about this is the government's position has been it will do everything it can to save the airport. Lord Faulkner is happy to make himself available. Let's get round the table with the Secretary of State. Maybe her advice will be there's nothing that she can do, but why not have the conversation? There's nothing to fear from the conversation. It's almost like the government thinks that somehow they will be culpable if they have the meeting and engage. They won't be culpable if they have the meeting and engage. They'll be culpable if they don't have the meeting and don't engage. And I'm afraid that's what they're doing. So, look, I'm going to end my remarks, because other people want to speak, by appealing to the Minister, who I know from another life she had when she was the Parliamentary Private Secretary to the President of the COP, and we had good relation. No, she did very well. I mean, we had a good relationship. Look, courtesy and commitment demands that we get round the table with the South Yorkshire Mayor, with members of Parliament, to leave no stone unturned. Maybe we won't succeed, but let's try and work together on this, because time is incredibly short, and we owe it to all the workers, we owe it to the community to fight all the way until our options have run out. Responsibility lies with Peel. I appeal to Peel to do the right thing, but I also appeal to the government to get round the table with us and see whether there is a way forward.